Hi everyone, this is Jacqueline from She Rises Studios, and welcome to Light the Torch ceremony. And today we honor a deeply moving and spiritually resonant work, Waiting for the Cry by Reverend Alicia Dawn. This powerful book offers a compassionate and honest look into the sacred yet often silent journey of child loss. Through personal stories, ritual reflection, and practical guidance, Reverend Alicia invites readers to witness the heartbreak, the healing, and the deep faith that carried her through. Written for parents, grandparents, clergy, counselors, and friends of the bereaved, Waiting for the Cry sheds light on what it's truly like inside the heart of a grieving parent. It gives us language for what not to say, prayers that soothe the soul, and powerful reminder that God restores. Hi, Reverend Alicia. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations on Waiting for the Cry. This particular title
Thank
is so powerful and evocative. How did you come? How did it come to you? Or how did you come by the title?
It was what I was thinking when I went into labor with my first son, who was
Mhm.
stillborn. And they had determined, the doctor, that because I was so early into pregnancy, just early second trimester, 18 weeks, that his lungs
Mhm.
were not developed, and so that he was going to be stillborn. So when I went into
Oh.
labor and had to deliver him, knowing that he wouldn't be living, it was
Mhm.
traumatizing, of course, and I was
Yeah.
just waiting for the cry to hope against hope that that prediction was untrue, that he would be okay and that he would be alive, but he was not. He was stillborn. So the waiting for the
Mhm.
cry was kind of like in my head. That's what I was waiting for, to try to disprove the worst. But the worst, unfortunately, happened.
Mhm. And I understand that that's the core experience that inspired you to write this particular book.
Yes, yes. I 4 years later, unfortunately, had another stillborn son at 16 and a half
Oh.
weeks. So 2 little boys, ahead of me in heaven, and yeah, their loss is what inspired me to write the book.
And although, it's the theme of this particular book is your pain,
Mhm,
transitioning it and using it is as a power tool for you. However, it's a little still difficult to write, especially that it's a
mhm.
personal story and it's a place of loss. What gave you strength to turn this pain into purpose all throughout these pages?
Mm, really, my faith, but it took time. It took 21 years to write this book. It wasn't
Hmm.
overnight. It was a long faith journey, which is why I kind of put
Hmm.
journey in the title. It really was a path through the pain and realizing that I still could be a whole person in spite of my loss because of who God has made me, and that even though the desires of my heart to have living children, that particular desire wasn't met, other desires were met, and there's other ways to kind of get my nurturing bug, fed, my love bug fed, loving on nieces and nephews and godchildren and other people's kids, church
Yeah.
family kids, whoever kids, it's loving on kids. So that really kind of gave me the strength, realizing that there was other ways that God could fulfill the desires of my heart, that I still was a whole person in spite of the loss, and that God was actually still with me, that I was not abandoned.
Hmm. I love that. Now, many well-meaning people they don't know what to say in situations,
Mhm.
when situations like these come up or happens. What are some common phrases or responses that may 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 help those that hurt, um, without being overly, I don't know, overly present. I
Mhm,
sometimes we want to give them space, but we
mhm,
also know what's the right thing to say.
right. So sometimes nothing is the best thing, to just be with the person. It's
Mm,
such an intense pain, the loss of a child. It really kind of takes you out of yourself for a while. So times you
yes.
wanna be around people, and then the next minute you don't wanna be around people, and then the reverse happens. So sometimes just having someone present is more than enough. They don't even have to say anything, but just keep you company, and when you cry, they cry, and when you smile, they
Mm,
smile. But also, one of the things people can say is just that, "I do not know what to say. I don't have the words. What do you need? I'm here." Because I don't believe there really are any words
mm-hmm.
for loss in general. We struggle to describe it. I think especially with child loss, because it just seems so
Yes.
unnatural, just so not what we expect today. It really catches people off guard. So it's very true that sometimes people just don't know what to say, and it's so useful to say that to the person, that I'm not trying to avoid you, and I don't wanna put my foot in my mouth, so I don't
Yes.
want to say, but I know what to say, but I'm here.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. And at some point you feel in these difficult times, you feel so far or distant from God. I
Mhm,
wonder, how did your faith sustain you in both situations where you've lost both of your kids?
mhm, mhm. My faith, I really felt that this is gonna maybe sound sacrilegious, but that I could kind of treat God the way I needed to treat God, so to speak, for lack of a better term. I know some people feel like you can't doubt God, you can't
Mm,
argue with God, you can't question God, and my faith is just very different. I feel that we're called to have very full and robust relationships with God, so that they are well-rounded, like
hmm.
other relationships, just that God is perfect. And so some of the errors other people make, God doesn't make, and that's to our benefit. But to have this full relationship that in times you're very talkative with each other, at other times you might be silent, at times you're happy with each other, at times you might be angry with each other. And that's just what relationship is. So that's how my faith really sustained me, is me believing that I could talk to God when I was mad and tell God how I
Yes.
really felt, that I could talk to God when I was sad and tell God how I really felt. And in those moments when hope started to return, I could tell God my hopes and dreams, although they were very tender. Like, I don't know what's going to happen next, Lord, but this is what I'm hoping. And so I could just share all of myself with God. And that's how my faith sustained me, believing that I was in a relationship with a God who could handle me, who really could handle
Right.
me and my totality.
That's true. That's true. And if there's anybody else that totally gets us,
Hmm.
our ups and downs, it's
Exactly.
it's it's our Father in heaven. Now, one wonderful thing about this book is that you included prayers that help.
Mhm.
Could you share one that became a lifeline for you in your darkest moments?
One that was my lifeline was, I would just say, "God, I don't know who this woman is, but you know her. Please reveal her to me."
That's
That
wonderful.
was one of my lifelines, because it was so transformative. Grief really does change you, and some of your old self may remain or reemerge, but you are changed when you're touched by grief,
Hmm.
especially so deeply
Yes.
with the loss of children. So there were times I didn't quite, recognize my personality as I was grieving. And so that was my
Hmm.
lifeline. I don't know who this person is, but you know who she is. Please reveal her to me. And thank you for accepting her the way she is.
It's a total surrender,
Hmm.
right? It's
Hmm.
a I am lost, because I can only imagine how it is already difficult losing someone that is, maybe it's always difficult losing someone, but I think it's a lot more difficult when you don't expect to lose someone. Just in your case, very early.
Yes.
Yep. So, but that particular total surrender to the Lord, I think, is what really helps. How can faith communities help, like
Mhm.
churches or clergy or even just friends, better
Mhm.
support those that are grieving this kind of loss, a child loss?
Mhm. Is to talk about it. That's a big way.
Mm,
People assume that you don't wanna talk about it, and maybe you don't. But there are moments you do. You just need permission to be able to share what you're going through, but there's a lot of silence surrounding child loss, and that
mm,
is honestly what kind of made going through the process worse, was that people we wanted to talk to, who we thought we could lean on, kinda disappeared because I think it just really freaked them out. Child loss scares everybody. So, with that fear reaction, people kinda withdrew and made an assumption that we did not want to talk to anybody and have anybody around. But for me, there were times of the reverse because I did get maternity leave, even though I did not have a
mhm.
living child. Places that I were at were very gracious, but my husband had to go back to work. So here I am home alone with my grief, and which it would have
Oh,
been great
yeah,
to have someone to talk to or someone to sit with me. So the best thing that I think churches could do is give permission to have the conversation. Just ask the person, and you always can preface it with, I don't want to offend you or cause more pain, but I don't know what to do and I want to help. So, would it be okay on Mother's Day if we recognize mothers who don't have living children or who had lost a child? Just a
I love
small
that.
gesture so that you feel included and not
Yeah,
excluded and so isolated.
that's wonderful. Did you come up with any, daily practice or routine reflection that have helped you move forward at that time?
At that time, I wore blue a lot for boy, which kinda helped me realize I was a mother of sons.
Yes.
Every year we visited their graves those first few years, and I would wear blue and black, a blue shirt or
Mm-hmm.
blouse or sweater and a black skirt. Christmas time, sometimes I'll decorate the tree for them. I'll wonder what would have been their favorite color. Well, I'm gonna guess
Yes.
this year it's this, and we're going to do the tree in this color this year. So those kind of yearly routines really do give me comfort. They help me.
That's wonderful. And you encourage us to speak about silent suffering.
Mhm,
Why is breaking the silence so vital to healing? Some people, they, for both the grieving and the, people surrounding them, sometimes
mhm.
it's just so scary to start talking about it.
Yes. I think the silence, it worsens the suffering. That's why
Mhm.
it's so important to break it. It's kind of like a wound. Some wounds you do have to cover for a bit, but eventually they need to be exposed to air. And if you hide things, they can get infected if you hide them too long or hide them in the
Mhm.
wrong way. So spiritual wounds are the same way. If you hide them, shroud them in silence, they can fester. So that's why it's so important to make room to talk so it doesn't fester in an unhealthy way so you don't become infected. You're going to grieve, but there's difference between grieving and there's a particular terminology psychologists use that I'm blanking on. I've called it kind of unhealthy, complicated. That's what it is, complicated grief. Complicated grief
Mhm.
that kind of turns into very deep depression that untreated can lead to all other kinds of psychological, emotional challenges. So that's why it's so important to lift the silence and not isolate and not hide so that those sort of spiritual infections don't fester.
That's wonderful. I love that. It gives us courage to
Mhm.
talk about it.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be immediate. Sometimes you want to be silent for a moment, but when you're ready, I think, you're right. You have to start breaking the silence and just start
Mm,
talking about it.
mhm,
If someone is watching today that is in depths of loss and may have been in the same situation that you were, what's one word of comfort you'd speak into their hearts right now?
restoration. The things you have lost will be restored on the inside. You may not have that child right now, But for Christians, for believers, we'll see them in heaven. So all things will be restored in one way or another. And sometimes it's not, overflow 200%. I've, made all this money from the $100 I lost. It's not, doesn't always work in a one-to-one. But I truly do believe that our inner selves are restored, that our souls do get restored.
That's wonderful. I love that. And finally, where can people connect with you if they want to tap you or find your book, join your movement of faith and healing?
Yes, well, Amazon.com. The e-copy is out today. I'm so excited. So you can grab the book. And my website is coming, Reverend Alicia Dawn, just my name. And that's another way you'll be able to connect with me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, congratulations again, Reverend Alicia, and thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us today. And so, if someone out there, someone you love, is navigating the loss of a child, let this book be a companion. Let it speak when there are no words. Let it remind you that healing does not mean forgetting. It
Right.
means transforming through the pain with faith, honesty, and hope. Waiting for the Cry is now available on Amazon. We encourage everyone to grab your copy, gift it to someone who needs comfort, and help spread its message. And even in our darkest hours, darkest cries, God hears us and God restores. Thank you so much again, Reverend Alicia, and thanks
You.
everyone for joining us today. Until next time, have a
Yes.
great day.